So today I'm going to tell you why you should skip the NVIDIA RTX 50 series GPUs. And I'm a big GPU enthusiast. I have a bunch on my wall up there, as you can see. Usually I want to get the GPUs when they come out. I'm really into them. I recommend to people. I like the newest technology, but this generation, it's just not working. The first reason, they're very hard to get, and they really shouldn't be. It's because of AI and tariffs and who knows what type of things behind the scenes. But they're much harder to get than you would really think. Like, we didn't have any shortages last year. Like, it just doesn't. The whole launch doesn't make sense. So you want to avoid it for that reason, because you're gonna have a hard time getting one, and you're gonna have to like go out of your way to find one, basically. And that kind of ties into reason number two. The price has gone up already. It just came out. How many people were able to get a 1999 MSRP in the US 5090? I bet you very few. Some people probably got lucky at Best Buy, maybe a couple, maybe they might have had it at Micro Center, but that's gone because after the tariffs, the prices went up already. Some of the Asus GPUs are up over $3,000, and that's not scalper price. That's like if you go to a store like Micro Center or Newegg, you're going to be paying over $3,000. The most expensive one is like 3,400 something, which is the liquid cooled, Asus GPU. Really cool GPU, but that's ridiculous. Like, no way is that worth almost twice the price of a stock 5090. Very, very crazy. So that's reason number two. The pricing is already out of control. If you want a 5080 and you find one, chances are you're going to be paying closer to $1,300 to $1,500, which is right where NVIDIA really wants you to be. And now let's hear a word from our sponsor, VIP-CDKdeals.com, a Windows Pro CD key. Add to cart, you put in code CC20. This will also work on Windows 11. You want to go into your settings in Windows, change and adjust your CD key, click activate, and now let's go back to the video. Remember, and I can't believe this is even hard to say, the 3080 was $699. Holy smokes. It had 10 gigabyte of VRAM, but whatever, but $699. Then obviously you never really sold for that consistently because of the shortages and the cryptocurrency mining, but it's still $699. That's a big jump. And then NVIDIA refreshed the 3080 with the 12 gigabyte version, around $1,199, around $1,200. And obviously the 4080 was like, bam, it's going to be MSRP $1,199. Not many people bought it. Good GPU, but not good for $1,199. Price to performance terrible. So NVIDIA dropped the price of the 4080 Super, $999. That one people were able to get. Wasn't too hard. It was even available well after. That's a good GPU for $999. 16 gigabyte of VRAM, not bad. And then the 5080, $999, right? That sounds really good, almost as fast as a 5090. On paper, sounds good, but you look at the real world, like really impossible to get it at that price. It's like you're going to get it closer to $1,300 to $1,500. So that's the other reason. Reason number three, these GPUs are having some issues. Like, if you've seen the 5090, and now these are going to be very small numbers. The 5090 has had some people with the burnt connectors. Lots of other YouTubers and media have covered this. Well, we never know exactly what's going on, if it's just a design thing, user area, whatever it is, there are some issues, and it may not happen to you. Like, I have the 4090. I was always scared of the connector breaking, and I'm in the sort of the media, if you will. And I knew it wasn't going to really happen to mine because it's such a small percentage. But you still think, this $1,500, $2,000 GPU could have a problem. And then it's not just about the cost of replacing it. It's also like, it was hard to get a 4090. Like, imagine you're going to be without it. Imagine a 5090. Imagine you waited in line to get one and your connector breaks. It's not just about replacing the monetary cost. You may not even be able to get a replacement because it's like, very, very hard to get. So that's happening. NVIDIA also confirmed that about, I think, 0.5% of 5090s and 5070 Ti have about 4 to 5% less performance because they're missing the ROPS, ROPS. They're missing some of that. You can look around for more information on that. So their performance is degraded because of that, and it was just some type of manufacturing error, but it's out there. And if you really want 5% less, 4% less performance on a 5090, when it's already just a little faster than a 4090, for the prices on the street? I don't think so. So these aren't perfect GPUs. It's not like NVIDIA fixed every issue that the 4090 had for the 40 series, for example. So reason number 4 is that the 40 series is still around, and I bet you can still find, and I've looked before, a used 4090 for a decent price. They've gone up depending on where you look, because it's been hard to get 50 series, so be careful with that. But the 50 series doesn't really bring anything too drastic to the table. Yes, the GPUs have, the next generation, like RT cores, tensor cores. So it's going to be a bit better ray tracing, better AI. But for gaming, like DLSS 4 is good. Multi-frame generation is good. But, DLSS 3, like on the 4090 or any other 40 series GPU, it's already pretty good. And, most games, you may not be able to take advantage of it completely. A lot of people call it fake frames and they don't like it. So unless you're really into that, it's not like DLSS 4 is a huge step up from DLSS 3. It's an improvement, but is it worth like chasing down a GPU for that? And the on paper, the 50 series does look like it would be like, oh, you need to get this, right? It's going to be neural rendering and all this AI stuff. But in the real world, like, where is it? We're not really seeing games with this, or just demos and samples. The real world actual usability of it, which I always like to focus on, is really not there. So let's say if I sit down in front of my computer and, I fire up a game that's graphically intensive with ray tracing and stuff, a 5090 is not going to give me an earth-shattering experience compared to a 4080 Super or maybe even like a 4090. Yes, the frames per second is going to be higher, especially with DLSS 4. No denying that it is technically better on paper, but I'm not going to use 32 gigabytes of VRAM for gaming, but just not. It'd be cool to see that in some game that has really high textures and really, awesome graphics and stuff. But we're not going to see that. That's for productivity, with 3D graphics work, AI. So you can tell NVIDIA really spliced this GPU towards productivity and AI, other work uses that aren't just gaming. And that's why it's so hard to get as well. So it's just not that big of an upgrade. Now, going from the 30 series to the 40 series, I do like DLSS 3 with frame generation. I remember I would play Hogwarts and games like that where the game would struggle without it. And then when I turned on DLSS 3 with frame generation, I would get some pretty good performance. Ratchet and Clank also, the game would just look smoother, even though, it's doing its thing. DLSS 3 isn't exactly giving you more performance technically. It's just making everything look smoother and, making the experience better. It works. It looks better. I prefer to play with it on rather than not for a game that really demands it. So I liked, the 30 series to 40 series. I think that's a good upgrade. Now, obviously, if you don't have a 40 series, you're still on 30 series. You could take this last point and maybe it's not as important for you, because 30 series to 50 series is a nice upgrade. You're going from regular DLSS to DLSS 4. With frame generation, multi-frame generation. And if you like single player games and things like that, that's a pretty good jump. Like a 3080 to a 5080 is definitely a pretty nice upgrade. That's only the last point. The other points still stand. The pricing, the availability, they're very hard to get. But if you could get a 5080 at $999 all day, like that's a good price. Even a 5090 at $1999, as much as it pains me to say it, that's a good price. You know why? You're never going to see that price again with tariffs and with the market not being available. So that's just the reality of the situation. So these are some of the reasons I think you should skip this generation. You may not even have a choice, because you can't find it or because of cost. So look for something else. And AMD has stuff coming out. And I like the AMD GPUs historically, like the 7900 XTX. I think was a really good GPU, but it isn't quite the NVIDIA, 4090, for example. Like if you give me a choice, and I think this is just, pure objective honesty. If you give me a choice, and you can even keep cost in the equation, I'll pay a little more for a 4090 compared to a 79 XTX. It's just because I want DLSS 3, I want better ray tracing. items like that. They have the same amount of VRAM, and rasterization performance on a 7900 XTX can sometimes meet a 4090. Like Call of Duty, for example, is better on the AMD GPUs, but they don't have the DLSS3, FSR, 3, and the upcoming 4 is not really nearly as good as the NVIDIA implementation. Ray tracing, which is better on the 4090. If you're going to buy a GPU like the 4090, I want ray tracing. What's the point of having a super expensive GPU? It's so you can have high frame rates and the best possible graphics that you can muster. And part of the best graphics in modern games is ray tracing. Even the new Indiana Jones games that came out, you need ray tracing. It's part of the game. You can't like turn it off. So that's just, if you like ray tracing or not, they're a part of games, and they do make games look better with lighting and different effects. Doesn't mean games still don't look great without it, but a high-end GPU, if you're paying like $1,000 plus, you want to be able to turn everything to ultra, including ray tracing ultra, and NVIDIA is the only one that gives you that option. That's it. If AMD makes a GPU that's better than NVIDIA, trust me, I'm going to be using that GPU as my daily GPU every single day. But until that happens, I'll pay a little more than the competing AMD products, if they even are going to compete at the high end. And the price difference isn't really that big. A lot of the AMD GPUs are pretty expensive too. They may have an MSRP of a certain amount, but the third-party AIBs and everything, just like NVIDIA, the price tends to go up. So the actual real-world difference isn't that big, but that's just the reality of the situation. So let me know what you guys think down below. Are you going to wait this generation? And I'll see you guys on the next video.